Hello everybody, this is Starman, and welcome back to Let's Play Betrayal at Krondor. Well, last time you remember, we helped out the very first Rusalki by putting her sisters to rest, and were given a bunch of rations and a magic shell. Why the Rusalki should have a bunch of rations is beyond me, but ours is not to reason why. Ours is but to get to the end of Chapter 6. And yes, clearly some poor unfortunate soul tried getting into these ruins as well. And yep, shades. Thankfully, these things are pretty poor stuff to us at this point, but still best to take precautions. Because they can't freeze us solid, but they can drain the life out of us very quickly. Ghosts in here. Thoughts filled his mind. Slowing in recollection, Gorath focused on his surroundings. The caverns themselves seemed unremarkable, yet this was a ruin of things ancient. What might it be written in the abbot's journal? A chest? Shell? Might it be? And that's a little reminder for those of us who read the abbot's journal. A translation of an ancient account of the travels of an abbot from Malak's Cross, the book was filled with stories and notes on mythology. Apparently, the abbot had been looking for proof of the existence of a sword known as the Gorath and Owyn, a cursed blade which was often associated with the moredhel. Shortly before the end of the journal, he related a curious tale. And so I came unto the Abbey of Killian, which stood unto the western fringe of the forest of the Elvandar, so named Elvandar. And there was shown a fairy chest upon whose face were the runes which are common to the elven and moredhel kin. A certain father did turn the two strange cylinders which were on the face of the chest, forming a word unknown to me, moredhel. But one which threw open the latches which bound and closed the lid of the box. From within he brought forth a finely jeweled hilt which he called the Gaeta. The father then told me that it had come from a ruin of an ancient place, and since there was much misfortune come into the abbey, and they willed it should be returned there for its eternal rest. He also did tell me other things strange and wondrous of the legend, saying a spell had been bound into a shell that would repair the blade, which had long been broken away, describing the shell as one marked with an uneven surface of 10 misinformed lumps. There was something different about the shell. Perhaps it was the color or texture, but he was quite sure he'd never seen another like it in all the trading meets he'd ever attended. The oddest thing was a pattern of 10 bumps on the inner lip of the shell. Wink, wink. So yes, nothing in here but this pathway forward. Gilder's Passkey. And looks like we've got 2 chests in here. Not the spell I wanted to cast. And okay, this one is actually a rune chest. Don't grow too attached to this thing. Without it, you will never even know it is gone. But be careful, friend. It is much easier to lose on kingdom soil. Well, that's an easy one. What should you not get attached to? Your life. And it looks like we've got a scroll called Mad God's Rage, which this is one of the better spells in the game. We'll give it a test later on, but unfortunately it can only be cast outside. Now we have something called Roric Steel. Unable to identify the signet on the face of the ring, Owyn checked the inner surface for inscription. Barely legible is a short epitaph written for an unknown reader. I think it works this ring of mine, but it'll sneeze about half the time. Yeah, this is in fact a cursed ring that we do not want to mess with. Roric being the former Mad King of the Kingdom, although what the heck that's doing in a Valheru ruin is best not, thought about. So, this chest. What is it of yours that you see every day but our leader sees only rarely? Well, that would be equals. And another scroll. Mirror Wall, which I think we already have a copy of. And Poison Elven Shoots, Enchanted Elven Shoots. Go ahead and switch out to the better condition one. Just because I like them. I won't have need for that book anymore. We apparently pulled an all-nighter. Need to have a very special key to get into this one. And yeah, correctly guessed that it was the Key of Lineages. And there's only one chest in here, and I think if you've been paying attention to my hints and my actions earlier, we can guess what chest this is. Where once there were 3, now only are 2. Ancient kin ours who we sit to our doom. Well, you have to be paying attention to the backstory and know something about the mythology of Raymond Feist's books, but that'd be reference to moredhel, aka the Mad Elves, who supposedly were killed off during the wars between the Dark Elves and the Light Elves, but turns out a few of them did survive, and they show up later in the books, but that's neither here nor there. So what do we have in here? Well, a couple of restoratives, which are still shockingly fresh. And there's also, okay, we're going to need a little bit more room for the hilt, apparently. And, well, I'm not going to need those torches. So, we have this hilt, we have this shell. Exotic sword. Set with brilliant stones of lapis and sapphire, the hilt was beautifully jeweled, but the sword blade had been long broken away. Still, as Gorath held it in his hand, he sensed it had the potential to be a deadly weapon. Well, use that with that. A searing flash of heat vaporized the shell as Gorath touched it to the hilt of the moredhel sword, elongating itself into a swirling length of blue flame. Around it a shell of silver and steel congealed, forming first a blade, then a scabbard of unparalleled workmanship. And there we have the Garda Ravace. Cautious at first, and with eagerness, Gorath wrapped his fingers around the hilt of the moredhel sword and drew it hissing from its scabbard of flawless silver. On the blades, runes glimmered in lines of sundered flame, their meaning indecipherable to most, but clear to any who held the blade. Avenge. So this gives 90 plus strength. The accuracy is 45 plus skill. The swing is 140 plus strength. And it is an elvish weapon. Now here's the best thing about this sword. It will not ever depreciate in value. That is, it does not go below 100%, which means we no longer need a whetstone either. So we can go ahead and take our rations back. And take another thing of restoratives. And we have no more need for money from this point on, so we'll leave the ruby behind. But we are now well and truly equipped. And immediately beyond this sword, a little bit to the north, I think we will find our way out. One more bunch of shades, but this gives us a chance to try out the new sword. And we're going to make this one all Gorath. Yeah, just 93 damage. I think it maxes out at their hit points. Yeah, strength is currently at 184. But here's where this gets really spiffy. It does lose the enchantment of whatever item you put on it each time, but it will not lose. It will not go below 100%. A long corridor stretched before them. This must be the passage to Elvandar, noted Owyn. If we go this way, it may take us a few hours to get to the inn. Are we up to the climb now? Yes, we are. And it skipped past the description, but we're about to launch right into the opening video. Owyn gaped. Awash in light, Elvandar glistened, its circuitous fairy walkways decked in glowing lanterns of brushed gold and crystal. Above, a canopy of silver-white leaves arched over the whole of the tree-topped city, masking from view wherever sun or moon reigned in the skies beyond. "Gorath, isn't this the most perfect place you've ever seen?" Owyn exclaimed. "I've never dreamt of anything like this." "Squire, if you can hold your tongue for a moment," Gorath said, "it might behoove you to bow to their queen." Flushed with embarrassment, Owyn turned heel, shriveling as he noticed the cloaked figures wait patiently upon their thrones. Quickly he folded in obstinance, hoping sincerely that human manners would be appropriate in the elven court. "We have come from Krondor with news about Pug of Starduck," Owyn said. "We are in hopes—" "Silence, child," Queen Aglarana spoke gently, her pale blue eyes glowing in the shadows. "Though we would hear of our dear friend Pug, first we must attend to the unraveling of eons." Inclining her head towards Gorath, her voice and composure took on a grave edge. "You have come before us as a moredhel, but never may you leave Elvandar as such. Are you willing to return to your ancient kin, cousin?" Rage flashed in his eyes. Trembling with emotion, Gorath advanced on the queen, his hand darting to the hilt of his sword. "No, Gorath!" Owyn gasped, knowing his voice was too small to stay his friend's wrath. "You can't!" "I was Gorath of the clan Ardenine," he spat, his voice thick with an ageless contempt. Color drained from his face as he gripped ever more tightly at the sword at his side. "I am Gorath, and I formally return to the Elvandar, and swear fealty to Aglarana, Queen of Elves, and to Thomas, Prince Consort and War Leader." Falling to one knee, he knelt low before Aglarana's feet. "I am yours to command, lady." His heart hammering an unsteady tattoo in his chest, Owyn stared at frank appraisal of the elves before him. Except for a glazed expression lingering on Prince Consort Thomas's face, he saw no evidence that any of them had witnessed anything unusual. "Rise. From this day forward you are no longer moredhel, Gorath," Aglarana said. "You are a member of the family of Elvandar and one of the Elvandar. When your quest is done, you will return here to be one of us. That is our desire." "What is this news of Pug?" As if waking from a dream, the elven war leader spoke the magician's name with great concern, his dark eyebrows rising in interest as Owyn began to elaborate the details. At times he would request that certain details be repeated, but always his glassy eyes became sharply focused when Owyn spoke the names of Pug and the members of Arufa's court. By the moons, that means trouble. Thomas coughed as the boy finished his tale. The Book of Macross is not a book, but instead a gift that Pug gave to me long ago. I was to use it to come to him if he ever left that message for me. I must go. You cannot, love. Even now I can sense the effects of the pain-killing herbs beginning to wear off, Oglarana said, laying a pale hand on Thomas's shoulder. As if broaching a delicate subject, she continued quietly. 3 days ago the war leader was struck with a poisoned blade. Only last evening did his fever abate, but he demanded to be brought here when he heard that a moredhel was returning. He hasn't the strength for the trip. You must go in his stead. Don't try my patience, Oglarana. Pug needs my help, and I shall go. Struggling to gain his feet, he blanched with the effort, standing straight only by groping the back of his throne. How many of our kin carried you here, my warlord? The queen asked, her voice laced with concern. Was it 5 or 6? You are no longer possessed by the soul of ash and sugar, and you are not gifted with immortality. None doubt your strength for loyalty, Thomas, but you owe it to Pug to send able help. As wise, always, my love, you are wise, Thomas whispered, his strength beginning to fail him. Reaching beneath the seat of his throne, he brought forth a lever tome covered with dust. So the Book of Macross is a book. We may not be the strongest or the fastest, Thomas, but we are able and we are here. Send us to him. I have little choice. You, Gorath, shall be my emissary in this. May the blessings of Elvandar go with you, and tell Pug I am sorry. We shall. Which brings us to Chapter 7, The Long Ride. Giggity. Bells tolled in the towers of Northwarden. Jubilant guards shouted from the walls, slapped backs exchanged war stories only days old. Already a bard was milling through the crowd, gathering names and places, scribbling them down as fast as he could. Tonight they would gather and they would drink, and they would pay old Tammy the minstrel each time he sang their names. Listening to the general hubbub drifting in through the open shutter, Senior James allowed himself a grim smile, as he dropped down to where Gorath and Locklear conferred over a battle map. By day's end, I warrant that Dalicon will have died on the sword point of every man here, James said. It's a shame he wasn't really leading that raid. Indeed, Gorath agreed, his eyes shrouded as he brooded about something. I would like to ask him a few questions. I leave for High Castle at noon. Even though the moredhel have turned from here, I am certain that by the first of them will be upon our troops there by sunup tomorrow. Fortunately, my army will be there to greet them. Still, I wish I knew what they were up to. Well, in point of fact, Gorath should know what they're up to. He's playing dumb for the benefit of James and Locklear. Gorath glanced up, startled, as a page boy skidded into the chamber. Your pardon, lord, the boy stuttered. They have captured the moredhel raiding leader. Without pause, Gorath's eyes hardened. Prepare him for questioning. Cooperate now, moredhel, and I promise you live to see your children become adults. Daunt me, and I'll have your eyes for necklace beads and your manhood for an inkwell. That would be a very bad inkwell, I think. My death will be unimportant. If you think that we shall torture you into death, I would advise that you ponder my mood. Anxious though I am to have an answer, I will keep you screaming this side of death for a month or a year until I feel well satisfied that we have heard all you have to say. A day, a month, you've already lost. Nail my entrails to your doorpost, feed my brain to your dogs, it will not matter. Even if you act now, it will be too late. You will win only pain for your trouble. Instruct him, torturer. Yeah, that sound effect is much more intimidating when you have the digitized scream effect. You do not listen. We know the secret of Sephinon. We shall free him. What secret? Why to Sephinon? 10 years ago we attacked. With Romandamus, you captured, imprisoned him. Deluded fool. We killed Romandamus at Sephinon and burned his bones for potash. There was nothing there for Dalicon to find. A lie. We have spied. What else could you guard so closely? How does he think that he will win past our garrison at High Castle? He doesn't have enough men. Answer me! Rift machine. The Six have a machine. It can take them place to place like a door between great distances. Even while your troops die at Sephinon, we will walk through the machine. We shall be through the Dimwood inside 7 a week before you can reach us. Your troops will be exhausted, and the day will be ours. A rift machine inside the Dimwood? That bastard Serenity magician has been consorting with Delicon. Torturer, tell Seniors James and Locklear to ride to the Dimwood. They must find and destroy that rift machine while I hide to Highcastle and divert our forces once more. Time is of the essence. Which brings us to Chapter 7, Destroying the moredhel rift machine. And it is night as we get here. And we have a ton of rations and all of the gear that we had before. And wow, James's strength is 24, 33. That seems so piddly compared to what Owyn and Gorath had now, but, well, this chapter requires quite a bit of walking around the woods, and there will be a lot of attacks and very little treasure. But there is one little bit of treasure that we do want to go to first. Remember what I left behind for Gorath and James to find? Or Owyn and James and Locklear to find? Oh, yes. Almost forgot. You get my union spell up. Zounds! Look at what has been left behind. 2 of the second best sword in the game, blessed by the gods of, pain and misery and whatnot. How fortuitous. How completely and totally unexpected. So yes, now we have some of the second best sword in the game. A hearty handful of magic artifacts. And with any luck, well, we did manage to get through that attack with a sudden surprise, and yeah. Even James can one-shot these guys with a Sword of Limbs Krogma, blessed by the death gods. And oh yes, with a bit of naphtha on the tip. And hey, James's defense ability went up. What does this marker say? Beware dangerous forest. No duh. But thankfully we do have this shop open now to give us all of the anti-venom restoratives and other odds and ends that we could possibly need. And then some. Let's see, do they happen to have Adventurine? They don't, but they do have bowstrings. Not that I'm expecting a lot of bow use, but good to have it ready. Well, we will go ahead and stop here, and next time we will begin Chapter 7 in earnest. We will see you then.